Jay Cherie. We're here to talk about your daughter Millie and her amazing life that she had, even though it was shorter than any of us wanted, and what we're doing to continue her legacy. Can you tell me a little bit about Millie?
She was born on July 11th. I was actually kind of mad because I really wanted to get a slushie
For 7-Eleven day.
Kaden had an appointment at Fort Belvoir and my water broke right in the middle of his appointment, and we just
Went down to labor and
had to walk down to labor and delivery. 11:45 my water broke and she was born at 1:09. We spent 5 days in the NICU with her. She was 4 pounds 10 ounces. She was born 38 weeks, technically full term. I had 19 shots of progesterone because Kaden was born 10 weeks early, and we didn't know why. But we thought she was fine. She grew, she did everything fine. She chunked up like she was supposed to. She was a squishy baby. She didn't crawl, she didn't have teeth, but they assured me, all the doctors assured me that it was fine, that she was normal. And then when we had orders to come here in May, so she was 9-ish months old, I took her in for an ear infection in April, which is very normal for a baby. They said, just give her antibiotics, keep an eye on it. If you can, come back, but we were leaving, so just keep an eye on it. She ended up getting really lethargic, really cranky. Didn't want to eat, didn't want to do anything but sleep on me. If we were driving in the car, we drove from Virginia to California, I had to sit in the back seat with her and have my hand on her the whole entire time where she would not sleep. We stopped in Texas. We stayed, and then we found out that she still wasn't feeling well. We took her to an urgent care. We were told that she had a double ear infection, not a single ear infection, so they gave us more medication. It was not helping. Turns out she was getting worse, so we had to take her to the emergency room in New Mexico. They said that she did not have a double ear infection. Her antibiotics were misdiagnosed. She was having too much medicine and she might have pneumonia, but they couldn't really tell. So they redid her antibiotics. She got pumped full of IV fluids, and they sent us on our way. She started to act a little bit better, I think, because she was so hydrated. And then she had a black eye. It's just a tail sign that she had a cancerous tumor behind her eye. She got worse and got worse, so we took her to one of the extension campuses at Phoenix Children's, and the doctor there couldn't figure out what was going on. They did blood work. They figured out that she had thrush. She had an enlarged belly. We went down to the downtown Phoenix campus, had to wait for a CT scan because they still couldn't figure out what was going on. They came back really quickly. So the doctors came in, 2 of them came in and said, we have good news, we have bad news. We know what is making your daughter so miserable, and it's cancer. That's the bad news. But the good news is her prognosis is good, and it's about 80%. And we decided that we would just do her MRI and her biopsy, because what the doctor didn't think was a mass, because it was so large, was indeed an actual mass. It was coming off of her kidney. And she went down to the anesthesia room. The doctor took her away from us, and that was the last time that we were able to hold her, because her body couldn't stand being under the pressure and breathing on its own, because the tumor was just so large. It was compressing her lungs, and she didn't have any lung space anymore. So she was placed on a ventilator, and we find out that she coded, and they had to restart her heart. She was placed on heavy sedation medication. And I remember looking at the doctor and saying, if this was your kid, what would you do? And she said, we would start treatment right now. So I looked at John, he looked at me, and we both were under this silent understanding of, all right, what's next? What do we have to do? Basically the next day we needed to let her body rest because it was just under so much stress for a little 10-month-old. And we were able to see her, and she did not look like herself. Her eyes were puffy, her whole body was puffy. Her hair was a mess, which was very typical of her because she had crazy hair, and we called it cockatoo hair because it would just stand up and there's nothing you could do about it. But she had really blue eyes, really blue eyes, dark on the outside, light on the inside, and we couldn't see them anymore. So when we were in her room, the nurses all asked us, can you print out pictures of what she looks like normally, because we don't know what she looks like. Doctors and nurses would come in to do their rounds, and they would think she was a boy because they couldn't see who she really was. So we put bows clipped onto her hair if we could, or on her pillowcase. Kaden drew pictures and put them around her room. We had her blanket that had her name, so people knew her name and they wouldn't call her a patient. So they could talk to her, and they knew who she was because you couldn't tell. And so we started chemo the next day. We would not be able to change her diapers because the treatment that she is getting is basically so toxic it could hurt our skin, but it was going through her body. We found out that she would lose all of her hair, all of her eyelashes, her eyebrows, her nails would fall off. We found out that we would have to take her into the emergency room if she had a mild fever. If Kaden had a cold, he couldn't be around her. Her nurse gave her treatment. It was 2 different drugs for 5 days. She was on her sedation medicine. She had baby restraints on her arms and her legs because when she would wake up a little bit, she would try and yank things off of her. I mean, she had tubes coming out of her nose, out of her throat, on her hands, in her arms. They had to constantly flip her and switch her because she was just so puffy because she wasn't moving, and she was getting her IVs and her nutrition through an IV, and she wasn't herself. She wasn't our girl, and she didn't look like it. And I would read to her, and we had my mom was there. She came. My grandma came in from California. We were still in Arizona. My in-laws came from Texas. They flew in to see her because we didn't know what was happening. And they read to her, and they held her hand because we weren't allowed to hold her at all when she was getting anything pumped into her body. And I just remember seeing like all of the kids and all the adults that are on TV shows and movies and how miserable they are and how it just tears apart their body. And I could just think, as this is going through my baby, we found out that she may lose her hearing, she may lose her sight, she may have speech delays, learning delays. She may never have kids of her own. Her body started to shut down. So we put her on dialysis. She got blood transfusions, platelet transfusions to help her kidneys basically take a little bit of a rest and flush the toxins through her body. And it was 5 days. And I remember on the 6th day, the tumor was not getting smaller, but it was not getting bigger. And from the first day that we found out her diagnosis to 8 days later, we found out it wasn't working. She was on enough medicine to basically knock her out, but she did open her eyes too. Whenever I would talk to the nurses or I would talk to her, she would try to open her eyes. She would try to look at me. That was the last time I got to see her eyes open. And then they gave her more medicine to close them. After all night, we were waiting. And the doctors told us that her body is shutting down. There's nothing that they could do to save her life. And that's not something you're supposed to hear as a parent for your child. I remember I asked, and I told him, I think this is a dumb question, but is the tumor so bad that we can't donate any of her organs? Because I don't want another mom or dad or brother to go through this. And we tried, and they found out that the tumor was just so horrible that it just took over her whole entire body. And we couldn't save any of her organs. And we had our family fly in. We had her baptized, and we were finally able to hold her. And we took turns, and that was the first time that we were able to hold her. I actually was able to paint her nails pink naturally, and we told her that it's okay, and we're sorry that we couldn't save her life, and she didn't have to fight anymore. So when she was ready to let us know, and it's okay, and we love her, and we are so proud of her, and we promised to do as much as we could in her name. And June 6th at 4:15, we said bye to sweet Mille. And now she's our little guardian angel. Since then, we have reached out to the Children's Neuroblastoma Cancer Foundation in Illinois and worked with them for over a year now. Now I am asking for help. Mille's name cannot be forgotten. It's every parent's worst nightmare to lose their child. So it's up to us as her family to keep her name going and keep her memory alive. And I truly believe that she was sent to us to do this. We want to save this heartbreak. I'm just her voice, and I'm very lucky to do it and very honored to be able to do this for our daughter.